Hey there, welcome to the channel. On today's video, we're going to do a little clean out of the garage. We're going to introduce you to all my bikes, of which I have many. And I'm going to tell you some future projects that I have going on. So let's get with it. Well, as you can see, I have quite a mess here. I've been working on my FXR. I have had some house projects that take precedence with spring here. The first day of summer, unofficially, by the Labor Day weekend. But here are two of my bikes. And I have another 4, 5, 6. I have another 6 inside. 7, 6.5. There's that thing. Anybody needs a Ducati ST2 for parts, there you have it. Anyhow, I've been working on the FXR build now for some time. I've had some little issues come up that kind of halted the project. One of them is an oil leak on the primary side. If you follow this channel, if you've been following that build, you know that I took the primary completely apart to be able to get my mid controls working. And the mid controls are working fine. That's beautiful. The oil leak, if you can see in that bag right there, is not beautiful. So that is something that I have to do some research on and figure out where that oil leak is coming from. So because of that, I'm going to be putting it on that lift. The ZX11 is coming off and the FXR is going up. The FXR is really close to being finished. I mean, I've done the hardest things, which is rewiring for the handlebars, extending the cables for the handlebars, the wiring, not the cables. The cables were sufficiently long enough. As a matter of fact, they were too long for the bars that were on there previously. But with this, and let me show you, for this bike, with these bars, they are perfect. So you can see there, and you can see the brake, which I had to reposition, but the brake is fine as well. I can loosen that and move it a little bit over to the side so it doesn't stick out like that. The clutch cable was the right length. Very happy about that. So what do I have? I yet have the exhaust, I have the seat, I have a tail light to install, and I have a few goodies. I have a few boxes of stuff. I would say the more difficult parts have been completed. Now there is a leak on the primary side. Let's see if it marked the spot while it's here. No, it hasn't. So I need to figure out if it's from the cover or if it's from the primary itself. And that's where I'm at. So we're getting there. And once I put the seat on, I have some bags for it. Once I put the seat on and those other goodies, it's going to give the bike a totally different look. So that's where I'm at with that. But today's project is cleaning out this garage. And while I'm at it, I'm going to give you guys an in-depth look at each one of my bikes, what I have here in my lineup. And in all honesty, one of them is working. The rest of them all have issues. For example, this one, front tire is flat. I have a new tire over there. I need to get a tube. These spokes leak. And I went to take it on a ride about a month ago, and it went flat on me about 2 miles, 3 miles from my house. I didn't get very far. I do have a few chrome parts to add to this bike. This bike is all about being blinged out. That's what this bike is. It's a pretty bike. And anyhow, let me get into it. All right, so let's get right into it here with the, this is a 2003 BMW R1150 GS. As you can see right there. I purchased this bike from a young man. He bought this bike from a neighbor. It was his very first bike. And he never really rode it because he figured it was too big for him. I live in a military town here in Virginia Beach. And the guy that sold it to him, gave it to him dirt cheap, was going on a cruise, and by a cruise I mean he was going out to sea for a long period of time. The owner didn't feel like putting it away or putting it in storage and paying all of that, so he sold it to that kid for a minimal fee. The bike was in bad condition when I got it. The letters on the tank, the GS, the letters on the bill, a lot of people call this the bill, like a duck bill, was in bad shape. The windscreen was cracked. Anyhow, this is a windscreen for a GSA. I put this piece on here. I put this bill on here. I put the knobby tires. I put the cage. I put the letters. I cleaned it up. I had to repair some wiring. I put these soft bags, got rid of the hard bags. What else have I done to it? It has a GPS docking mount, USB charger port. I got this bag on here. What else? Put these foot pegs. It had the round, small foot pegs. When you use these pegs, you're standing up a lot because you're on dirt. And these pegs being flat like that, they help you out a lot. For your feet not to hurt. And I'm an older guy, my feet will hurt quickly. Right now, what's the issue with this bike, other than I need a battery, is this here is the hydraulic clutch bleeder screw. And this hydraulic clutch bleeder screw supposed to be strapped up here with a strap, literally. And I was out in the BDR, Mid-Atlantic BDR, and this fell, and it fell between the tire and the swing arm. And what happened was it sprang a leak. I had no clutch. So I had to ride the bike about 60 miles with no clutch to make it back to my truck and trailer. I had business up that way, and I hauled the bike with me so that once I was done with my business, I could ride the bike on the BDR. And luckily, and that's how I got it back home. So it took several months, and by several months, I mean almost 3 months for me to get this part. It came in from Germany, and I got that, but this is an 1150. It is a oil head, what they call an oil head. Great running bike. I love riding this bike. It's really fun. I put these lights on here. Those things really light up. And yeah, it's a great bike. Love it. Next bike. Let's go to the 2005 Harley Davidson Softail Deluxe. So this is another bike of my dreams. Love this bike. I tore this bike apart. When I first bought it, I rode it up and down the block a couple of times. I probably put 5 miles on it. And this was my intent, to do this to it. I brought it home and I tore it down completely. The only thing left on it was the engine and the swing arm. I took everything off. So what does it have? The wheels, obviously, I think everybody could figure that out. That is a 21-inch wheel. At the moment, that wheel leaks through the spokes. I had to ride it home on a flat, so that tire is shot. I put all these visors on the lights. I got those red lights. I put the 16-inch bars wired, pre-wired. I put these mirrors on there. I put the Dakota digital gauge. You can pick any color. You can pick blue with yellow. I mean, it has all the colors of the rainbow here. The dash panel, the exhaust, the fishtail exhaust, those are 45. You know, funny enough, those floorboards are stock, are factory. Those are not aftermarket. I put that Mustang seat. I put the luggage rack. I put this here. I had that made, custom made. This is called the V-bar, and that is from V-Twin Manufacturing. They no longer make it. These signal lights right here are very expensive. I have the Custom Dynamics tail light, Tombstone light itself, not this. This is factory, but the LED tail light. So that thing lights up a lot. What else? The rear wheel. This saddlebag here is, I bought saddlebags for horses. That's a horse saddlebag, and I put it on one of these quick release that I had for the sissy bar. I was no longer going to use that, so I can remove this lickety split. Just press here, take that like that, and off it comes. But it does the job. You know, I can put a sweatshirt in there, I can put some gloves, I can put clear glasses when I go out at night. I had the swing arm chrome covered. The front suspension has progressive suspension springs, and that has made a difference. You can see the signal light's pretty cool. What else? Like I said, the handlebars, I got these special order, everything chrome. So 100% chrome, and that's what this bike is all about. It's a blingy bike. You know, it's supposed to be in your face, really good looking. It's got a new battery. So what else? There you can get a better view of the exhaust. Oh, the fender. That's a Picard USA fender. The stock fender comes to about right there. And I ordered that. I had the bike completely painted. It has a Arlen Ness oil pressure gauge. This emblem here, vintage emblem, tank emblem, I installed. The air cleaner is a Kuryakin air cleaner. I chromed out the engine as much as possible. I went through with a toothbrush and chrome polish and cleaned up all the chrome. It's an 05, so it's not a new bike, but it's clean now. So right now I need to change the front tire, put a new tire with a tube because these spokes leak. They are DNA, not the best. I hear Ride Right makes a better product. So this is my 05 Vicla. Some people call it a Cholo. And that's that bike. I love this bike. It rides great. It's kind of like a bicycle with an engine on it. That's the feeling I get. It's very torquey. It's not super quick like my Electra Glide, but it just, for it being so light, there's not a lot there, and it's very low as well. When you sit on it, your knees are almost bent to the ground. So not like my Electra Glide where I'm on the balls of my feet. Love this bike. Let's take a look at my first ever motorcycle. Now this is not my first ever motorcycle, but in other words, this is not the one, but this is the exact model that I had. My very first motorcycle that I ever bought 45 years ago was a 1978 Honda Hawk, blue, and this is that bike. And that's why I bought it. I've owned this bike probably for about 6 years now, 6-7 years. And this one happens to be a Honda Mavic. And if you don't know what a Honda Mavic is, it's a 2-speed bike. It has no clutch. So what it has is a torque converter. This is actually a parking brake. Think of it as an emergency brake. You press this in, you squeeze that there, and it locks the back brake because it's always in neutral. Even if it's in gear, it can be moved. So this is that bike. I owned this bike 79 to 80. I was a young man. I was fearless. I was learning to ride. And for those of you that don't know, large displacements back in the day, you know, a 1000 was about as big as you'd get. Even Harley Davidsons were small. They had the smaller engines. So everything was smaller back then, size-wise. So what we consider big today would have been humongous and out of the world. Which in some countries, because I talk to a lot of people on social media, because I know Spanish, I talk to people in a lot of Latin American countries. I talk to people in Europe. These bikes in other countries are still considered a big bike. A 200 in Latin America is a decent sized bike. When I tell them that my Harley Davidson is an 1800, they choke. What we consider small today wasn't small back in the day. This was, and I'm not going to say this was a big bike, but for a beginner, it was a decent size. They had a lot of 125s, a lot of 250s. So that is my 1978 Honda Hawk. Okay, this is my 1992 Kawasaki ZX-11. This bike is a show winner. Right now it doesn't look like a show winner because it is retired. It just sits there. I haven't started it in a long time. I have the carburetors drained, and anybody that knows anything about carburetors in motorcycles knows that once you drain those carburetors, you don't want to fill them up because it is a hassle to empty them out again. So there she sits, waiting to be revived one day in the near future. When will it be? I don't know, but no time soon. There are 7 trophies up there. 6 of the trophies are for this motorcycle, the ZX-11. This bike was built and painted like this in 1994. So 12 years after it came out. At that point it was 12 years old. I'll show you a neat thing. which I wish I had the lights, because I have LEDs under this fender. And this hole here, when this bike is all cleaned up and I have the LED light, you can see that hole clearly. And what it looks like is something hit it. And I'm not sure if you can see exactly, but it's kind of like something hit that and blew up. And there's flames there. And that happened because this fender is not for a ZX11. This fender is off of a ZX14. And I mounted it, and the first time I mounted it, I had to go on a long trip, cross a couple states, and when I got there, the fender had moved down and it wore a hole through here. Now, I had just primered it because the other fender got wrecked. It just flew off one day. I hit a pothole and it flew off and it got damaged. So I bought this fender to modernize it. Anyhow, I take the fender and I send it to my painter in Florida. And I told her, do not fix the hole. And she was so confused. It took a lot of going back and forth for me to explain to her that I wanted that hole there. So there's lights under there. At night it looks really cool. And these are all of my family members who have served in the military. As you can see, from World War II to present. Right now we have about 3 or 4 nieces and nephews in the military still. I have a nephew in the Middle East right now with everything that's going on over there. And I have a niece in the Navy on a ship somewhere. So that is my 1992. I did a lot of work to this bike. Paint. I polished the frame. The frame was black. This bike was black on black. It was triple black. Everything was black. And I stripped it down to this. Now, right now it's kind of dull, but when I polish that frame, all that aluminum, this bike pops. Got a Vance & Hines exhaust that I had to have custom made pretty much. It has a 4-inch extended swing arm. Those are stock wheels. I painted those myself. Has the American flag in the back. I've never been stopped for that. I thought maybe a police officer would pull me over, give me a ticket one day. Never happened. Everybody loves this bike. It's a crowd pleaser. People see this bike and they gather around. You know, it's been parked for about 8 years. I parked it about 8 years ago, and there it sits. I wash it every once in a while. I like looking at it. The guy that painted it said it was like painting a model car or model, you know, like something small that it was like playing. He really enjoyed it. He did the bullet holes with the smoke. I bought the smoked out lenses. I bought these foot pegs, which I guess you can tell are dated now. Has a blue chain. It had a lot of powder coating, and slowly but surely I switched it out. It has a custom chain guard. It has spools. That's my plate. See the mileage on there. The fastest I went ever on a motorcycle is on that bike. I went 170 miles per hour. It was a long, long straightaway in the middle of the night. And I don't need to visit that speed ever again. I'm good. That's why I got a Harley. Nice brake levers. Brake lines. This bike has so much. I could go on and on. Oh, everybody gets a kick out of the little missiles I put on there. Those missiles are scraped. Right here they're scraped on both sides. Moving on. (1980) Honda CX-500. This bike I just bought. I had a BMW K1200 GT, and I sold that bike and I bought this bike. I saw it online. These bikes are highly sought after. It was a really good price, and I jumped on it. I went to see it, and I'll tell you a little story, kind of how it goes, so that you can see kind of how I get my bikes. Obviously, I never go and need a bike, so that's the first thing. So usually when I'm having a conversation with somebody, they ask me, "You got motorcycles?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got 7 motorcycles." So they know that there's no pressure, that they can't pressure me. I'm not a little kid. It's not like I'm gonna, I need this bike. I don't need it. So I looked at the bike, and it has a few issues, and all this stuff in this box here, with the exception of the towels, there's a master cylinder rebuild kit. This is not the factory one. I do have the factory one, and I have a rebuild kit for it. I have the rebuild kit for the front caliper. I have a carburetor rebuild kit. I have an exhaust. I have new exhaust. I have a quarter fairing that is easily going to pop on there. It could be, I'm not damaging the bike. So for those of you who are purists, oh, he's going to ruin the bike, I like a little wind protection on the highway. But this bike is not for me. This bike is either for my son-in-law, my grandson, my 3 daughters that live here in Virginia. I have 5 daughters in total, but one of them lives in Florida, one of them lives in the city in New York. So the 3 daughters who live here are in the process of getting their license. So this bike, they can ride this bike. So getting back to the story is, I made the guy an offer, and he says, some other guys came by last week, and they told me that same number you just told me. He said, and I told them no immediately. I just didn't have a good feeling letting them have it. They were too cocky. It didn't seem like they knew a lot about motorcycles. And the way you have come and really gone through the bike, I can tell that you know that the carburetors are dirty. You're asking good questions, and that's really what I wanted. Somebody who's going to take care of this bike and put it back to the way it should be. Somebody who's going to care for it. He says, so for you, I will give it to you at that price. He says, for those guys, I would not. And it goes, what I'm trying to do is share with you my experience that a lot of times getting cocky and just, if you're trying to get a bike, and he's right. I'm going to take care of the bike. I'm going to do the rebuild of the carburetors. I'm not going to bastardize the bike. I'm not going to tear it apart and start putting a bunch of stuff that doesn't go with this bike. This bike at this point is a classic, and I feel it should stay that way. So there are bikes that I make changes to, and there are bikes that I just leave alone. For example, this bike. I'm not going to mess with that bike and put a sissy bar on that thing. It doesn't go with that bike. That bike is going to stay the way it is, the BMW. I'll talk about that in a minute. So that is the Honda CX-500. It does need tires. It does start. It's missing a lot because of the carburetors. You can hear it spitting. It psh, psh. So I know for a fact it needs carburetors. It has a brand new battery. Mileage on it is somewhat low. So the bike is clean. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a 1980. That's what? 44-year-old bike. That's a 44-year-old motorcycle. So it's not, you know, it's not a young motorcycle. Many of you follow my channel because of the FXR, and that's what we're looking at here. As you can see, it is missing the exhaust. I have recently put on these mid controls. It had forward controls. I got rid of those. I put those bars on there. Those are Thrashin Supply bars, Thrashin Supply risers, 9.5 with pullback. I did quite a lot of stuff here. I put these grips, I put these levers, I put those mirrors on there. This bike has been in my family for more than 10 years. It belonged to my cousin. My cousin sold it to my nephew, and my nephew sold it to me. And as a matter of fact, it's the same nephew that I just said that is in the Middle East, and that's why he sold it. He says, I'm leaving the States and I don't have a place to store this bike. So he says, so I'm going to sell it, and when I get back, I will buy something different. And in all honesty, if he wants to buy this bike back, I will sell it to him. As a matter of fact, when I'm done with it, I'm going to send him a video. So it is a 1994 FXR. For those of you that don't know what an FXR is, this is the sport bike that Harley Davidson made back in the 80s. This was to compete with the Japanese bikes. What makes this bike special is the frame. It was really good in the turns. Obviously, it's a Harley engine competing with a Jap engine. Not so much, but if you soup that engine up, it is an Evo engine. Those engines last forever if you take good care of them. They sound beautifully. It's a good looking bike. I talked about painting this bike, and people commented that I should leave that paint job. It's very patriotic. I wasn't in love with it. I still am not, but I think I'm gonna leave the paint. So I do like the American flag. I love the American flag on it. So that is my 1994 FXR. I have a bunch of stuff that I still have to put on this bike. Exhaust, seat, and a bunch of other stuff that I haven't mentioned. So I actually have a build series for this. If you want to watch, subscribe. I'm about to do some stuff to this bike here shortly. So that is my 1994 FXR. It's gonna be a ripper. Or as they say in Boston, it's gonna be a ripper. Okay, moving on. Let's go look at the BMW. The BMW 1955 BMW R50. And I'm not sure if you get catching the drift if you're not a BMW guy, but the R stands for that type of engine. This is an R engine. The other engines, and it's a bike I just sold, is a K engine. But if it has those type of heads, it's an R. This is the bike they made right after World War II. I bought this bike at a auction, kind of a open house type thing. The gentleman passed away, and he was, like myself, a bike nut. He was an older gentleman, and he had a Triumph, he had a Moto Guzzi, and he had a couple Hondas, all old bikes. And the wife, who I got in touch with, told me this was his favorite. And he lived in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. That's where I went to get this bike. I bid on it online, and I won the bid. So now my job is, it has a little bit of an electrical gremlin going on. This is a 6-volt system. So it has It is shaft drive. I believe it's a 4-speed. Kickstart only. Not sure if you can see the kickstart there. It's a hassle to pull all these bikes out. This is the kickstart right there. So you stand sideways in front of it. Basically, you face it, and with your right foot, you press down on that. Speedometer. The key is the most fabulous thing about this motorcycle. And I'm going to show you that now. Now, I believe this to be original paint. So I'm going to clean it up and go from there. This is the key to this motorcycle. So I bought this motorcycle. Let me let that jet go by. I bought this motorcycle, and it took me like 3 days to find the key. I went online and I did some I watched some YouTube videos, and I watched, and I watched this one guy, and he came up to this thing here, and he pulled it out. And that is your key. Put that in your pocket and you walk away. You want to put it back, you pull this forward, insert the key, you push it in. You want to turn your lights on, you turn that this way. You want to turn your lights off in the daytime, you just keep it like that. Isn't that the most coolest thing? So the other thing with this bike is, and a lot of bikes back in the day didn't come with a side stand. This bike has a side stand that somebody put on it. But it's kind of not so in such good shape. So you have to put it on its center stand. And these bikes are made out of real steel. No, you know, there's not a lot of aluminum going on. This bike is heavy to pick up. The other thing is the foot pegs do not fold. They're solid mounted. They don't fold like modern day foot pegs. Like I said, it's a 6-volt. And it is worth some money, that bike. There's a lot of people that collect those bikes. Okay, now the final bike is my Electra Glide. And that is my favorite bike of all. Why is it my favorite? Because it's the one I go on the long trips with. It's the one that has the most work into it. That is this thing here. Look at a rabbit. What's up with that guy? So this is my 2009 Electra Glide Classic. What is the Classic? It's actually the bottom of the barrel. It's the budget of the Electra Glides. But I can tell you that this one is not on a budget. Let's start with the Ohlins suspension, which always grabs everybody's attention. The engine, I'll start with the engine here. The engine has these diamond cuts that I did. I have 8 hours of work putting those cuts in there on all of the cylinders, as you can see. And what does that do? Well, when the light hits it, it reflects differently. I have a Trask air cleaner, which I really like. I have Roland Sands Clarity covers for the clutch, as well as I can see my timing chain there. You can see the S&S Cam Plate in there. You can see the chain tensioner in there. These are new Thrashin Supply floorboards. Bassani Exhaust Road Rage 2. Custom made seat, one of a kind. Had this made, a guy out in South Dakota. Made it exactly to my specifications. These are 12-inch bars with every internal wiring, everything chromed out, everything. Fully chromed. Avon grips. It has a Metra interfering with a double DIN Sony XAV-7000. It has CarPlay. I had the gauges custom made with the Harley emblem on them and the blue lights. It has Roland Sands, believe it or not, yeah, diesel cut, Roland Sands diesel cut wheels and rotors. Ohlins suspension cartridges. Performance machine fork legs. Custom Dynamics LED. Custom Dynamics, what do they call this? Custom Dynamics light bar. Oh, it's not on. I don't have the light, the key. What else? Custom Dynamics sidebars. Custom Dynamics sequential signal lights or lights on the bags. Custom Dynamics bar lights on the tail light and the fender tip. Custom light bar here that I added. A lot of Custom Dynamics. What else? You can see the XAV-7000 now. Has a Sony, has a lot of features. I have a camera on it as well. Let's see. I can see behind me with the camera. I'll just put the camera on. If I want to keep my eye, rather than looking at the mirrors, at what's directly behind me. The back is very well lit. I'll turn it on again so that you can see. I have a lot of lights back there. So at night, rolling down the road, I can be seen. What else? It has so much. There's so many parts. I didn't tell you about the engine. The engine is a 107 built. It has T-man heads, T-man pistons, S&S Cam Plate, S&S oil pump, T-man cam, T-man push rods, T-man push rod tubes. What else? Screaming Eagle clutch, Screaming Eagle compensator. Oh, it has an external, the breather. These tubes here, so it no longer vents oil into the engine, but it comes out, so that the pistons are not getting dirty, and neither is the valves, the top of the valves and all that is not getting all gunked up. These mirrors are Bagger Brothers mirrors. It has Rockford Fosgate speakers. I just bought some speaker mounts for these. So I have some Cicada speakers that are going in there, and I have a Rockford Fosgate amp that I'm putting in, which will give it another 400 watts. So that's gonna pump it up. I have all of these gauge, because they match the wheels with those dimples, and it also matches the Ohlins Ring of Fire. That's what I wanted to show you, is the headlight. Not sure if you can see that, but it does that thing when you start it. I forgot what they call it, but when you turn left, So there's kind of like a ball in there, and it makes this side light up, so it lights that side of the road. And if you're going right, it'll light that side of the road. Thrashin Supply Shorty. I love this thing. It used to be that big, and it took up this whole thing. Now I can put my foot here, no problem. Roland Sands Clarity clutch cover or derby cover. I have the bag liners for this, quad lock phone mount, CarPlay cable, it's right there. Clockworks red windscreen. A lot of chrome engine parts. As you can see, I like chrome. So that is that baby. And those are my bikes. There's one more in there that is in parts and pieces. There's a Ducati ST2. It's a 2001. And I bought it, and it is, as you can see, I bought it as a project to do a cafe racer with, and I bought it in 2017, and I had back surgery that year, and I had that bike in the center of the garage ready to roll, and when my back went out, I was bedridden for a whole month, and then a whole another month to recuperate. So it was 2 months of I couldn't do anything. And after the recuperation, I couldn't really do any heavy lifting for a few months. So that project went to the side and I lost interest. So if you know anybody that wants to buy a ST2 for dirt cheap, there it is. It works. Okay, so I think that's all for this video. As you can see, I am working on cleaning up the garage. I'm going to be putting the FXR up there, and that is it. I'm gonna keep rolling on that bike so I could get it on the road here shortly. And hopefully when my daughters get their license, they will have that bike, they will have this bike to ride, and they will have this bike to ride. Those are 3 bikes that I would trust them with. This bike, as big as it is, as some of you might see it, it's low, very easy to handle, as is the FXR. Yeah, I've been off for a couple weeks, taking care of stuff at the house. Let me show you my backyard. This is my backyard, and you know, because we have winter here, not really hard like they do up north, but we do have winter here, and what happens is we just don't use the backyard. From late October through mid-May, we don't use the backyard. So it takes me some time and work to put this thing together. And this past weekend being Memorial Day, I had to work for the last few weeks to get this backyard in shape the way it is now. So that's pretty much it. You know, I am very fortunate. This, for those of you who probably think that, that I'm living the life, I've worked hard my whole life, you know. I worked 2 jobs at some points. So if you want to share this with some young people and they see all these motorcycles that I have, I'm 63 years old. This didn't come overnight. I'm a business owner. So I know what it is to not have money because you have to pay your employees. I know what it is to not have jobs and not know where, you know, the next paycheck is going to come from for you to pay the mortgage. You know, being a business owner is not always what people think. Yeah, there are some good times, but a lot of times there are some hard times. So I am very grateful that I am able to live like this, but I'm still on the hustle every day to make sure that I can pay my employees and pay the mortgage, pay motorcycle insurance. That's another thing. Not all of these bikes are insured and registered. I can't afford that. So a lot of them are toys for me, and it's an investment, really. So I have a few bucks, I'll buy that bike, and then I know I can always sell it. and recuperate my money. Can't do that with certain bikes because they're too modern. And I don't know if you guys know, same with a car. When you buy it from the dealer, as soon as you buy it, price starts going down, 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 down. And it's not till it's 40 years old that it starts to come back up. And that's where I'm at. So that's why I buy these older bikes, because they're kind of at their bottom of what they're going to devalue at. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you guys are enjoying the summer, getting your bikes out there and riding. You all take care. Watch out with the crazy people on the roads, and I will catch you on the next one. Adios.